Hey, you guys, hope you're well. I just wanted to take this opportunity and let you know about our amazing new business scalability scorecard. So have you ever wondered if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, and you want to grow and scale the business, but not sure how, and you're looking for some advice and you're looking for some strategies about how you could effectively grow and scale your business? Well, this is your opportunity. We have actually created an amazing business scalability scorecard. It'll take you around 7 to 8 minutes. And at the end of that, it will actually create a report of all of the things that you're doing particularly well in and the things that you need to make improvements to your business. And it's a great tool and a great asset for your business. To get free access to that, go to bit.ly/business-scalability-scorecard. Go there, go now. Take care, see you soon.
This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by productivity authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game Changers Experience podcast with myself, Adam Strong. And today, yes, we're going live. It's actually, I really enjoy doing some of the live stuff. I really do. And today I'm really, really super excited. I really am. Because we have a real game changer, as I like to call him, on today's podcast. And it's interesting because we've been following each other for a number of years, and then we collaborated on a couple of occasions. And today we have the privilege of having him here on today's show. So I'm hoping that you guys are not only as excited as I am, but we're also going to have fun. It's going to be interactive, and you guys are going to engage. And if you're listening to the recording of this, by the way, what we'll do is we'll make sure that you check out our guests' details on the links below. So without further ado, I'm going to now introduce our guest. Who is our guest for today, ladies and gentlemen? Well, he is a 5 times New York Times bestselling author. He's a co-author with his with his business partner Adrian Gostick, and he's an organizational culture, employee engagement, and teamwork expert. He has written a number of books, actually. 4 of the most common books, which is The Carrot Principle, All In, The Best Team Wins, and recently Anxiety at Work. He recently became a podcast host as well, called Anxiety at Work, which I'm really going to sort of ask him about that, because that's a new project of his and whatever it might be. And he's been featured in mainstream media from CNN, NBC, BBC, Washington Post, etc. And honestly, I'm so super excited about today. And I hope you are too. So without further ado, Mr. Chester Elton. Woo!
Well, thank you, Adam, for that wonderful introduction. I always enjoy your enthusiasm.
Honestly, I think you give it as good as you get. Seriously, I'm like, it's interesting. Like the time that we've known each other, what's really interesting is that you're probably one of the most happiest, humblest people on the planet.
Well, thank you very much. My humility doesn't know how to respond to that. And also, you've got you love to stand out as well, because orange is your favorite color. Everything that you do is orange, right? I mean, look, he's even got his favorite orange shirt on, ladies. And look at that. He's even got the carrot here, right? Honestly, It's fantastic. I love it. So listen, looking forward to today's show. Hope you are too. And first of all, how you been? Doing really well. I live just outside New York City, and New York City's opening up. And even with the variant, people are being careful. I was in the city just earlier this week, had breakfast with a friend, rode the New Jersey Transit trains for the first time. And
It smelled like Clorox. It was all very, very safe. And so, things are, when people are careful, it's fun to get back together. And, you mentioned earlier, Adrian and I have this wonderful podcast, Anxiety at Work. And we've met some of the most fascinating people, some of the most accomplished people that you would never think would suffer from any kind of anxiety or self-doubt. And yet every one of them has. And as they share their stories and they share their methods and their strategies as to how they've dealt with it, it's been really gratifying to not only get to know them, to then share their stories and their strategies with others that may be suffering from anxiety at work, which we are finding is one of the number one issues in the workplace today. So very important to address.
Interesting. That's a really interesting point. And we'll talk about anxiety, but I know that we can also talk about teams today more specifically. We just had a comment come in. You've probably seen that. This is from Stefan Tonen. Stefan is he's a HR director and 25 years plus experience in the HR field. And in fact, he's one of our co-authors in our new book, Play the Game, which you were very kindly written a foreword to it, which I'm really super grateful for, and I really appreciate that. And thank you very much for your contributions. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I love this. He must be Dutch. I love Dutch football, by the way, Stefan. I love the Dutch style of play. It's unusual for an American to love European football. Well, it's getting more common. My son Carter is a huge European football fan and introduced me to football, about 10, 15 years ago. And we have great fun watching the Euros. And of course, I love the Dutch. When they don their orange jerseys, I just feel so validated. So thanks for your comment.
Well, actually, it's not that you're American because you're Canadian, aren't you? It's not really very Canadian.
No, it's not Canadian at all. Yeah, you're right. At any rate, and the thing, it's so interesting that Stefan should put that comment up, and we transition to football, because you talk about, great teams. And it is interesting, isn't it? Particularly when you watch European football, you can have great stars, and it doesn't matter, if you don't have a great team and that great philosophy. And, one of the aspects of high performance teams, and Adrian and I did I did a deep dive on high performance teams. We wrote a book actually called The Best Team Wins. And it was this idea that we cheer for each other. And I love that about great teams, is that, yes, we have our stars. And yet, if you're on the team, we should be cheering for you. And if you're on our team and we can't cheer for you, we got to figure that out. We've got to figure that out. So whether we've talked about, culture, leadership, teamwork, anxiety, that red thread that goes through all of the work we've done is this idea: do we cheer for each other? And I got that actually from Scott O'Neill, who's an executive we studied for years now, who was actually the CEO of the Philadelphia 76ers basketball team, the New Jersey Devils hockey team. He also was president of Madison Square Garden, where, the greatest arena on earth, self-proclaimed. And he said, think about that for a minute. If there is someone on your team you can't cheer for, why? Have you not managed them properly? Do they not understand their role on the team? And then he said, think of the people on your team that you easily cheer for. Why? Why can you easily cheer for them? Is it because they always show up? Is it because they give their best? It's because they include other people. And I think it's a very simple tactic for team leaders and teammates to determine where they fit on the team and how other people fit on the team. Isn't that interesting?
It is very interesting. I always found it quite fascinating. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about one of the things that I find quite fascinating, Chester, is also how organizational, culture within companies and organizations, how that plays an important role, as well as building good, thriving teams. That, in essence, that for me, on a psychological perspective, but also on a DNA perspective, that completely fascinates me.
No question. I mean, culture eats strategy for breakfast is the famous quote. And I think,
Absolutely.
not enough teams or companies spend enough time on who are we? What do we want to be and how do we want to get there? Our mission, vision, values, and once you get that locked down, our values will help us get to, our vision, and our mission is the mechanics on how we'll get there. How do we behave? How do we treat each other? What are the basics? I was just on a video chat with Gary Ridge, the CEO of WD-40, and they've developed a fabulous culture. And one of their core values, and they are hierarchical, right? Your first value is your most important, and it's do the right thing. And I just love that it's that simple, because we all know what that is, right? Are we doing the right thing? And then are we doing it for the right reasons? And if you can't answer that question, none of the other values matter. Because if you're not doing the right thing, everything else goes. So I do agree with you wholeheartedly, Adam, that getting the culture right, not only does it help you attract the right people, it intrinsically rejects the wrong people. And I love that about a great culture.
I agree. It's interesting. I love Gary Ridge, by the way. I know that me and Gary have collaborated as well. So I think it was yourself that introduced us and whatever it is. And, there's just a lot of things that really resonate with me, with what he says, because it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? It makes complete sense. But it's amazing how organizations and leaders around the world don't actually do what I would see as common sense, but I guess common sense isn't so common in a uncommon world. So,
yeah, and I think the way that you express your culture and your vision and your values, I live in New Jersey, just outside New York City, and a lot of pharmaceutical companies here, and one of those that kind of sets the standard for culture is Johnson & Johnson, and in their facilities they literally have their credo etched in stone. And I love that. You say, well, is it etched in stone? Well, at J&J, yes, it is. It's literally etched in stone. And these are the core values that we drive. And so when they had, the classic business school case of the poisoning of Tylenol, they went right to the credo and said, our first obligation is to our customers and the people that use our products. And so pulling all those pills off the shelf, it wasn't a hard decision for them. It was, as you said, it was in their DNA. And not only was it a tremendous act, cost them millions of dollars, of course, it then established them as the company that really cares. And you will pay a premium for that. People pay a premium for Tylenol, and they should.
Yep. True. I agree. It's interesting. I'm like all of these wonderful conversations with and we have shared some amazing mutual friends from the likes of your business partner Adrian and Gary and also Marshall as well, Marshall Goldsmith as well. I'm kind of thinking to myself, maybe we should all collectively come together and maybe create another New York Times best-selling book around DNA of culture. I don't know, but it's kind of fun. But interesting. What's going to say? What does Stefan say to? He says we have 3 simple values that define and creates our culture: hunger, heart, and harmony. I love that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, what I like about what Stefan is showing us there is the simplicity. I am a big fan of the rule of 3, and you've nailed it, Stefan. I can remember 3 things. I'll never forget doing some work with a tech company out in California, out in Silicon Valley. And of course, we wanted to base all our consulting and whatnot on their core values. And I said, so what are your core values? And he said, let me go get them. He said,
what?
Yeah, exactly. We just had this retreat, and he came back and he said, we have 12 core values. And I said, 12, if you have 12 core values, you have no core values. No one can remember 12 core values. And I joked with him. I said, Moses only had 10. And nobody can remember those either. You asked your really good friends, list the 10 commandments for me. I guarantee you they will not get it right.
Oh my God, so funny. Well, listen, I've got a great question for you because this is just like some great conversations, and it's definitely like right up my street, as they would say in the UK. Anyway, I know that you've like really dedicated your life, for the last 20, 25 years and the realm of, culture and stuff like that. But over these are working in this space. What have you learned with working with what motivates employees? I know that you've done some studies with Glasshouse. I know you did some studies with, what's the other one? It came off the top of my tongue. But how do you think that they've changed over the years in terms of what motivates an employee, especially in the digital world? Because I guess that has also played an important role as well.
It does. And thanks for asking, Adam. Adrian and I developed some years ago our motivators assessment. So a great question for us. We've had, I think, around 90,000 people have taken it now. It was put together by Gene Graves and Travis Bradbury, who developed the assessment for Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And so really rock solid in the methodology. And it is interesting, when we initially did it, we thought, when you have your core motivators, those will never change. We were very wrong in that assumption. You go through life changes and things do change. We did find that there were some of your core motivators that didn't. For example, if family was really a core motivator for you, that tended to stay fairly consistent, right? If learning was a core, that stayed fairly consistent. Life changes, you get married, you have kids, a pandemic hits, you lose your job, you lose you lose your parents, and things do change. The pandemic, I think, really shone the light on a couple of things. One is that, if you were to ask pre-pandemic, what are the characteristics of great leaders, great team leaders? They'd say, well, a visionary, motivational, transparent, authentic. It's really interesting, Adam. Now you ask that question, and there's only one characteristic that great leaders have to have. And it's empathy. And so you ask me, what are employees looking for now that may have changed over time, particularly in the digital world? And it's they want to know that their leaders care. They want to know that they care about them. It was shocking to us when we did the deep dive on anxiety at work that 90% of employees don't feel safe sharing their mental health issues with their immediate boss. 90%. Wow. And why? Because they're not sure that you care about me as a person. You care about me as a worker. I get that. You want my reports on time. You want my productivity reports. You want my sales quotas. Do you care about me as a person? Are you empathetic? And so I love your question, because to me, it really comes down to one word, and it's empathy. Do you care? And if I know that you care about me, not just as an employee, as a person, things are going to get really good really fast. Isn't that fascinating?
I love that. Do you know what? That's a really interesting study that you did there, and I really do think that there is some great, what I was going to say. There's this great gravitas to that kind of study. There really is and it's certainly going to teach a lot of leaders, whether they are experienced or they are new leaders, because effectively, this whole kind of situation where we are in the world, it's not going away anytime soon, ladies and gentlemen. I can assure you.
Absolutely. So, what's really interesting too, and I'd like to ask you a question here, Adam, because often people interchange sympathy with empathy. Do you think there's a difference? And if so, what is it?
There's definitely a difference between the two. Sympathy and empathy is kind of, you're really listening to your employees, and you're trying to give them a safe space, right? You're trying to give them some reassurance that it doesn't, we're in this together, right? That to me is empathy. Where sympathy is kind of more, if someone's going through a tough time, it's like you're sympathizing with them with regards to their situation, whether it be, I don't know, a family member that passes away. You're sympathizing because of their situation. So there are from my perspective, there are two subtle differences between empathy and sympathy, and it's important to understand and distinguish the two and how to execute when one is needed.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sympathy is kind of bummer, dude. I'm kind of glad I'm not you. Want a sandwich? The empathy really is, like you say, that caring, that listening, and saying, "Look, I don't know exactly what you're going through. There have been times when I have also gone through tough times. Let's sit down and figure this out together." It was so interesting as we did the interviews for our book, Anxiety at Work. We said, well, what advice do you have for leaders? We'd interview these really accomplished people, and they'd say just one thing: understand that when your employees finally feel safe to talk to you about this, they know you're not a certified psychologist and counselor, and they don't expect you to have all the answers. And I thought that was really an interesting comment. What they do expect you to do is to listen and to empathize. And if you can listen and say, you are not alone. And that was really a key message, that you are not alone. Whether you're going through some mental health issues, some anxiety, or you're just worried about your job, or you're trying to figure out where you fit on the team, to know that there is a listening ear and that you are not alone are such important messages for leaders to transmit to the people that work with and for them. And again, back to Stefan, simple messages, easy to articulate, not always easy to implement.
True. Absolutely. Very good. I love it. Very cool. I know we were talking about culture earlier, actually. And I'm wondering if we could kind of delve in a little bit more deeper about that, because when we talk about, I know that Gary is particularly, I wouldn't say he's an expert. I would definitely say he has some great insight around culture. And I think all of us really, really do, because it's not a one size fits all approach, is it, to building great cultures within companies and whatever it is. But how important is it to build the right culture, and what do we need to do to build the right culture, to build the high performing team that we really, I suppose, aspire to, that's gonna that's gonna make sure that our employees are happy and engaged, as well as our business, or the leaders of the business, and making sure that they're performing at a level as well. Any thoughts there?
Well, first off, Gary Ridge is a culture expert. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He lives it, he breathes it. The importance of culture and where you get started is, we talk about in our roadmap to what we call an all-in culture, is that there are 3 E's that are really important. You need to engage, enable, and energize your people. So this idea of who are we, who do we want to be, and how do we want to get there are really important conversations to have on a regular basis. And once you establish that, you say, okay, how are we engaging our people? Do they really understand what our noble cause is, right? That's just right from the beginning. Do you have that emotional connection to work, right? And the idea of, then have we enabled you to do that? Do you have the tools to get there? I mean, I can be highly engaged. If I don't have the tools to get the job done, I'm like a hamster running in the wheel. I'm really busy. I'm just not getting anything done. And then that emotional connection, right? The idea that I care about the people that I work with. I care about my customers. I care about my community. I think more and more, particularly with millennials and Gen Z, is they want to know that what they're doing makes a difference. And that's so important in your culture. How are we making a difference? Are we taking care of the environment? Are we taking care of the poor and the needy and so on? I mean, I get that we make widgets and we need to sell as many of those widgets as we can to stay in business. Over and above that, what are we doing? And those are just such key elements in a culture: engaging, enabling, and energizing your people. Do we understand our noble cause? Do we share that with people? And are we really all on the same track? Alan Mulally, one of the great leaders of our generation, who saved the Ford Motor Company during, the recession in the late 2000s. He had such a wonderful way of articulating the culture. He'd say, look, these are the behaviors. This is who we are. This is how we treat each other. And whenever he found an executive that couldn't do that, he'd coach them up. He tells the story of a particular executive that just was really hard on people, and in a way that just was mean. And he said, look, you're incredibly competent. You get work done. The way you treat people, though, just is not acceptable. So let me coach you up. You need to change that behavior. Now, I'm going to give you time to do that. And I love the way he would say it. He'd say, now, and we'll just pick a name, Frank, if you can't make the shift, that's okay. I mean, really, it is. It's okay. You just can't work here anymore, right? Because our culture won't support that. So I'm going to give you a chance to change. It's variable defined. Here's how we treat each other. And if you can do it, great. Stay here as long as you want. If you can't, that's okay too. You just can't work here. And he said, look, I've never fired anybody. They've all self-selected. And I thought, once you have a really well-defined culture and well-defined vision and goals and behaviors, then it gets really easy to attract the right people and reject the wrong people.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. By the way, Gary, if you are listening to this, I didn't mean to call you you're not an expert. You are an expert. Of course you're a bloody expert. I always meant is that what I actually was trying to say within that is that we're always learning more about our areas of expertise. There's, and Marshall will talk to us about this a lot, is that we're all continuing students. Even Marshall's a student, even Gary's a student, even you're a student. We're all continuing students, and we're all refining our craft, yes, some people
in fact, Gary's motto, and he signs all his emails with, is ancora imparo, which is Latin from Michelangelo, I am still learning. So 100%, Gary is one of the greatest ongoing leaders of all time. I was thinking, I agree. I've got his book around here somewhere. He just published a new book. Let me find, here it is.
With
with his signature boomerang, The Unexpected Learning Moment, Lessons in Leading and Thriving Culture Through the Lockdown.
I love it.
Yeah,
and I love the pattern of the book. It's very Aboriginal.
Those are his Australian roots, no doubt about it.
Love it. Oh, I haven't spoke to him in a while, but I'll have to touch base with him and congratulate him on that. That's fantastic. Very good. I like that. So, I guess my other question was, when it comes to when clients come to you, when organizations come to you, because I mean, you've spoken at many different companies from around the world, and they approach you and say, Chester, I'd love to build a team, like a thriving team, but I don't know how to do it. Like, where do I start? What is it that I need to do? And any thoughts there? Because I know that there's going to be a lot of people listening in and into this recording and stuff. And, we're all in different journeys, as you know, Chester. Some of us are right at the beginning of that journey. And some people are, who are listening in are, top CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. So I guess the fundamentals don't change. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the first step is, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? And then build your team to get you there. There's the old Aboriginal adage, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. And so,
Absolutely.
What is the destination? That's the key question. Where do you want to go? And then who do you need to help you get there? And that helps you flesh out your team. Unless you can answer that first simple question, nothing else matters.
Love it. Very good. Interestingly enough, I had a question this week, and I was speaking to one of our clients, and she turned around and she's like, I know that I need to grow my team, Adam, right? These were her words, right? I know I need to grow my team, Adam, right? But I just feel like I'm not a good manager. I feel like I'm not a good leader, right? And I don't know if I'm equipped to know how to build a team and whatever it might be. And I'm like, and obviously I gave her some advice, but have you ever had conversations with people, with managers, with leaders in exactly the same situation? And if so, what do you say to those people?
Well, you have to make sure that everything's on the table. I mean, they may be right. They may not be a good leader. Not everybody's a great leader. I think, again, back to my friend Scott O'Neill. He's a student of leadership. I love that. And he is a leader of leaders. He is a CEO and he coaches CEOs. And he comes from a family of CEOs, which is amazing to me. And he said, look, if you want to be a good leader, then be a student. Study leadership.
Yep.
Talk to guys like Adam, read books that Gary Ridge has written. I mean, leadership is a vast category. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of books that have been written on leadership. Be a student. Figure out what kind of leader it is you want to be. I think we have sometimes in our heads that a leader looks like this. And it's not true. Leaders come in all shapes and sizes and weights and heights and colors and genders. There's no mold of a perfect leader. So find your path, become a student, and do the work.
Love it. Some sound advice, and it's interesting because I know and I completely understand those people, from experience. But I guess you're absolutely spot on. Lean in, as I like to call it.
and by the way, after you've done your study and you've worked really hard at it, you may find out that it's not you. And you know what? That's okay. We sometimes we've got too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? So there's nothing wrong with being a great supporting actor. So find your place. So often we'll take, and this happens in sales so often, right? We take the top salesperson and we make him the sales manager. And often that's the worst thing you could do, right? The reason they're great salespeople is they like to manage their own time. They love the hunt, and so listen, make no mistake about it. We often promote people into leadership positions that we shouldn't. And by the way, again, quoting Alan Mulally, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, listen, you talk to great generals and you know who they love? They love staff sergeants, because staff sergeants get stuff done, right? We don't need, the worst thing you can have in your army is an army full of generals. My gosh, you'd never get anything done. So, be a student of leadership, figure it out and find your place and be happy with that.
100%. Very good. Love it. Interestingly enough, there's something that we haven't really spoken about, which I think is actually, I would call it the currency of a team, which is team spirit, right? We haven't really talked about team spirit and what breaks what, and we look at American football, we look at ice hockey, we look at football teams or soccer teams, as they call it in the US, or whatever it might be, right? You've got these top performing teams, right? And then suddenly they go through what I call a blimp. They go through a blimp or a road hump, and then suddenly they're all off par. Like literally, they just can't get back into this kind of what I call synchronicity, right? Or this flow, and they are unable to perform at the time of when they're on top. Have you ever encountered I'm sure you have you ever come across teams where their team spirit has broken down for one reason or another? And if so, what is it that has got them back to where they were before?
Yeah, the biggest failure in teams when they lose that team spirit will almost always come back to trust. Something's happened and you've broken trust. The manager has thrown you under the bus, or a teammate has done something that's maybe a little, I don't want to say unethical, just something not appropriate. Relationships that, conversations that were confidential were shared with the rest of the team or the public. So when you have high levels of trust, the team spirit can remain high. That doesn't mean that you'll always be productive and you'll win every game or you'll win every client, right? The thing is when you have that deep-seated trust, I know that you care about me. we can go through the hard times together. When we break that trust, when you don't show up, and this is something that I think is a concept that we need to talk more about, is do we show up for each other? And do we keep our promises, which all comes back to trust? Do we show up at the meetings? Do we show up for the client? Do we show up for the customer? And do we have those levels of trust? I can talk to you about anything. We're all in this together. We are not alone. As soon as that trust is broken, as soon as that confidentiality is broken, then I'm all alone. And it's going to be very hard for me to give my very best to you, because I'm always going to be thinking about, if I say this, what does it mean? When she said this, what did it really mean? And so that's when I think, the esprit de corps really suffers, is when we feel like our teammates and our bosses haven't shown up for us and we don't trust them. So, and as you know, Adam, it can take a long time to build trust, and it can take you 10 seconds to lose it.
I agree. 100%. Love it. Just out of curiosity, does that still apply to, now we've also got another mutual friend, Dr. Olga Konolov, who wrote a great book called The Vision Code. And
Sure.
Interestingly enough, we talk in his book, he talks a lot about ego. Ego and vision don't kind of fall in the same kind of remit. They're very opposites. If you've got someone within the team that's got like what I call a big ego, how does that translate into the team spirit? Can the team continue to thrive because they see that person as a, I don't know, as someone to kind of compete against, or do they see them as a competition and as a toxic person? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, again, it comes back to, what kind of culture do you want? Do you want a culture of mercenaries that all compete with each other? There's a lot of, in New York, in the financial world, there's a lot of that, sharp elbows, toughen up, suck it up, and so on. If that's the kind of culture you want, then big egos are great. Again, you want to go fast, go alone. Big egos go alone. If you want to go far, if you want to build something of substance, which is a different tact, big egos normally don't do well. And it's interesting, Adrian and I, we built a training company before the training company we have now. And we had a very talented trainer on the team. Clients loved him. Salespeople that he supported loved him. Big ego, thought a lot of himself, as my father would say, was a legend in his own mind, right? and as we were early managers, right? Early leaders. And we said, give us some advice. I said, well, you just manage around him. You manage the star. The rules are a little different. And we did. And it crushed our team. And we finally got to the point where we said, you know what? You treat the team badly. It's always about you. You're actually taking advantage of some of the rules, which, became ridiculous. I mean, and so we finally came to the point where we said, you know what, for the benefit of the team, you need to leave. And we let him go. And we were worried because the salespeople really liked him. The clients, he always got good reviews. Not only did it not hurt our team, we doubled our volume in the next year and a half. Wow. Sometimes we say, look, they're so talented. Let's figure it out. And sometimes talented and big ego sometimes translates to toxic. And as soon as it crosses that line from big ego to toxic, you have to make a change. Now, here's what's really interesting, Adam, and I know you know this from experience. Sometimes the team knows before you do how toxic that team member is. And initially, they blame the big ego. It's your fault. The longer it goes on, that blame transfers from the big ego to the leader, because you should know and you can fix it and you're not. And so now it's not the big ego that's the problem. It's you, the team leader, that's the problem. And I'll tell you, it was so interesting as we let him go, and we let him go graciously, and we sent him off, appropriately. The bigger team party was the party after he left. Everybody was so relieved that he was no longer there. And it's interesting. You learn from sad experience, right? that sometimes we want to keep those top performers because they're top performers, when in reality, the best thing we can do is let them go because it's bad for the culture, because it's bad for the team. And those are hard choices to make. It was very hard for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, well, I think one of the things that, especially with a lot of our audience that listen into is this whole point of letting go, you know, whether it be letting go a team member, whether it be letting go of a client or whatever it is, you know, the whole kind of letting go, you know, it has a lot of a emotional attachment to it, right? Even if it affects the team, like you've mentioned, or it affects an individual. But I mean, I guess you've, I suppose, you know, a lot of your clients have experienced the whole kind of, oh, you know, letting go. I feel uncomfortable with that, right? I you know, I don't know if I've got the bottle, or I don't want to, I don't want to kind of, I don't want to be seen as a bad person. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how you advise people of kind of the whole letting go thing, and you know, and because I know psychologically as a leader, you're already thinking, oh, you know, this person's going to judge me, or these guys, or the shareholder, whatever it might be. Any thoughts there? I mean, I'd be fascinated because, you know, like I said, you know, this is kind of what people are thinking right now, you know?
Sure. Listen, you just have to have strength of character and belief in yourself. My father, who is my greatest cheerleader and, you know, just the most amazing man I've ever met, he'd say, look, you do the right things for the right reasons and good things happen. If you do the right things for the right reasons, you have nothing to fear. And if you do the right things for the right reasons, and it turns out that you end up losing your job or your position, you know what? That's okay. That's okay. It was a bad fit. It was a bad fit. And move on.
Love it. Love it. Very good. What I was going to say, I know that you talked about trust in team spirit, but I also wanted to ask you about complacency, because teams can become very complacent. They can become very comfortable in whatever is that, like, you know, and then this is when businesses start to plateau, right? They start to plateau, they start to get comfortable. And then suddenly, you know, you know, businesses they either grow, or they either grow and they continue learning, or they die, right? They fizzle out. They start to go down. How you know, as part of that team spirit, from your perspective, does complacency come into that? Does that come into play? And if so, how do you advise clients about teams who become, and leaders that become complacent and get too comfortable in being comfortable?
Yes, you know, I would say, look, you've got to constantly challenge yourself and look for new opportunities and so on. And that's the role of the leader, to keep the team engaged. It is easy to, hey, this is the way we've always done it. Let's keep doing it that way. You found that in the pandemic. You know, a perfect example is Chris Rainey and HR Leaders. I mean, their business was in-person conferences. And all of a sudden, nobody could meet in person. What do we do? And he pivoted to online, and his business exploded. You know, he challenged himself. It would have been very easy to say, well, this will blow over by the summer. Let's just wait it out. And a lot of people did that. Let's just take a break. You know, it'll you know, if, what was it? March was the lockdown. By the end of August, we'll be fine. Summer is kind of a slow time for us anyway. September, we'll be back. Well, gosh, you know, 18 months later, we're all still saying, well, when do we all get back together? So, yes, complacency. And that comes back to, do you have a spirit of innovation? Are you constantly challenging yourself? And a lot of that comes from talking to your customers, talking to you. What are you seeing? What have you seen in other places that work well? What could we continue to improve and do differently? So, yeah, complacency it can be deadly. And there were a lot of companies that didn't survive through the pandemic. They couldn't make the pivot.
I agree. Yep. And you know, and we haven't really spoken about this much, but the importance of embracing change, adaptability, and being nimble is, I guess, not only we've probably seen it more, I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I know that you have, and I know that I have. We've embraced the change. We've had to be, you know, mindful and adaptful and things like that. I mean, I know that there are still leaders out there that are still resistant to change, you know, because I don't know, what are the reasons why leaders are resistant to change? Any conversations that you've had?
Sure. Well, I think to your point, you get comfortable. And by the way, I didn't embrace the change as quickly as I probably should have. I kind of thought, hey, let's kind of see how things are going. And, we've got reserves. There's no reason to panic, And it was our friend Marshall Goldsmith that called me up and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're doing this, this, and this." He said, "You need to start panicking now, like panic now." And it was great advice. I thought, wow, geez, I guess I should be doing a little more. So yeah, I will tell you, because I know we're at time here. Adam, is if there are a couple of messages to your leaders for high performance teams or just being a better leader, is really focus on that empathy piece. Let your people know you care. When people feel cared for, when they feel like their voices are heard, when they feel like they're important, really good things can happen. When that empathy is missing, it becomes very check the box, very perfunctory. It's a very transactional relationship. And you know what? If there's one thing the pandemic taught us, is that we're tired of that. We want meaningful work. We want to work for good people, and we want to make a difference. Check those boxes.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So tell me, just before you go, because I am conscious of time, tell me a little bit more about your podcast, because honestly, I don't know anything about it. I've seen Anxiety at Work all over LinkedIn and all over the place. Tell us more about that. And I know you mentioned at the very beginning, you've been interviewing some great leaders in the world and stuff like that. Why a podcast? And, what's the vision for that?
Well, really interesting. We did the podcast because our friend told us you're probably the only authors on the planet that don't have a podcast. So what's the matter with you, right? The thing about it is the book is really important. The research is really important. Then the mission was, so what do you do after that? So, okay, it's a great book, great tips, great strategies. The idea was the extension of the book needed to be have people share their stories. Destigmatize anxiety at work, normalize the conversation and bring empathy into those strategies. So along with the podcast, we also created an online community called WeThriveTogether.global, a safe place to talk about mental health and anxiety in the workplace. So, it wasn't just the book. It needed to be the book. It needed to be the ongoing conversations in the podcast. It needed to be a safe community. And we've even partnered with a wonderful company called the Culture Think Tank to help organizations be able to have a dashboard with simple surveys. Where are the anxiety hotspots? What's causing it? And what can we do to fix that? So we've got the book, we've got the podcast, we've got the community, we've got the platform, and then along with that is the training. So we are very, very mission driven around this idea of anxiety at work, quite simply because we both had children that suffered from it. So it's not just a workplace thing. It's a family thing. It's a community thing. And we think that we've been able to identify strategies, solutions, rituals that can really reduce anxiety, improve people's lives, improve where they work. So yes, Anxiety at Work, available where you find all your podcasts. Anxiety at Work, the book, available online where all fine books are sold. And please join us in our community. WeThriveTogether.global. It's a package deal, and we think we can really make a difference.
Love it. It's interesting because I don't know about you. Are you on Clubhouse, by the way?
Am I what?
Clubhouse. Are you on Clubhouse?
I visit Clubhouse.
Okay, cool. Because we should maybe do some stuff in Clubhouse. There's a lot of conversations on Clubhouse and mental health and work and stuff like that. Maybe we'll chat offline and sort of brainstorm some ideas and see if we can get the message out there. I love that kind of what you stand for, and I'm a big fan of you, as you know, and I continue to be that fan and stuff like that. So just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and hope you had some fun. And it's been great.
Yeah, it's always fun to be with you, Adam. Your energy is always contagious. And big fan of LinkedIn. Follow us on LinkedIn. We've got a LinkedIn newsletter called The Gratitude Journal. In fact, we publish it twice a week. On Fridays, we publish one today. So please give it a visit and sign up. We have over 110,000 subscribers. We're very pleased with the community we've developed there as well. So lots to do, lots to take care of. Have a great weekend, Adam. Always fun to be with you. Cheers, my friend.
Also, guys, make sure that if you have any questions for Chester, please also make any comments in the comment section below or reach out to us, and we'll see you soon. And if you want to connect with Chester as well, please also check out his links below, and we'll see you soon. So from me and Chester, have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you soon. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Hey, you guys, I just want to say thank you so much for listening in to this episode of the Game Changers Experience. I hope that you got some amazing value, some great insights, and golden nuggets that you can implement into your business straight away. I would really, really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review on the button below. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.